Does it feel like sometimes that everything just sucks? People suck, things suck. You can't find anything good anywhere. Then you're in luck. We're going to talk about why everything sucks. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Danny from everybody. Randy, what's up, Randy?
Yo, Danny.
So, I don't know. Do you feel like things kind of suck?
On a regular basis, I find myself I must be getting old because I literally fantasize about what life must have been like back before the internet and back before cell phones and
You
back
know what's
before
funny?
all this stuff.
Well, I was thinking because so, last time I was teaching Nietzsche, he was of a period of romantics, and a lot of these people back, and this is like in the 1800s to 1900s, they would look at ancient Greece as like the epitome of like civilization, and like when you read their works, and then like you kind of know like there's no way it was like this, right? Because they were
Hmm.
imagining like this perfect thing. But it is kind of funny because like I do wonder like we all seem to do that. Like we find problems with our time, and then we try to imagine like we think that it must have been different back then, right? Like it must have been better. They must
Well,
have had it together. Some group must have figured this shit out. Like,
I think it would have been awesome in Rome or Greece, but I would define roughly from the development of antibiotics up until about the 1980s as the golden era. Because before antibiotics, you get an infection, you're just dead.
yeah,
And you know, 1980s was when greed took over and things stopped being actually people stopped trying to make good things and just tried to make money.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy, right? And I think, well, it's funny too because you look at those societies when they build stuff like that stuff lasts. Like, no, not everyday things, obviously, but like they built structure that lasted thousands of years, basically intact, with
Hmm.
nobody doing any work to them, you know? And in fact, like, and everything we make falls apart because it's made to
Yep.
break, you know? It's like, and there
Yep.
is something to that. I think like the industrialization really cheapened stuff in a lot of ways, where it devalued individual things because no one's making them. They're mass market, and they're junk, a lot of it.
Okay, so that movie you told me to watch, Gentlemen Broncos, I watched it and I
Oh, did
understand
you?
why nobody watches it. Yeah. But like
It's so good.
or terrible, or terrible.
But I
But
like Good Terrible
but
though. Good
but
Terrible is great.
like they had all like the sci-fi paperbacks and they were all like 60 cents 75 cents and I was like yeah, like some things, food pretty much costs the same that it did 20 years ago with the exception of inflation from COVID, but food pretty much costs the same. But like books went up tenfold or more,
Yeah.
20-fold, 100-fold in terms of price. And it's just
And the authors
yeah,
make less than ever. That's the other crazy
yeah,
part.
quality isn't any better. But it's like I always think it's funny that like technology generally stays about the same price or gets cheaper over time.
Hmm.
Because like the
Oh, dude, video
the
games. A
terrible.
new game costs exactly the same basically now as it did when I had a Game Gear or a Game Boy. You know?
Mhm.
Like the new games cost about and they were like I think about that sometimes like man, they were like 50, $60 back then, which is
And
like
when money was worth more.
which means they were like $280. Like really,
Yeah.
if you think about it. So how are
Yeah.
they still the same price now? And that's the other thing that kills me is I think like we it's so they're so greed oriented anymore and all these because it's like all we have is monopolies now. We don't have like a lot of small
Monopolies and
businesses.
shareholders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. And private equity. That's all we
Yeah.
have. And they
And the
don't
little
care
guy
about the
gets
stuff they have.
screwed.
Yeah. It does feel that way a lot. And it's frustrating. I think that was always the case, but like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I it probably was. I mean, there were slaves and everything back in the day, so of course it was. But
yeah,
like I
totally.
fantasize about Henry Ford saying you should pay people as much as you possibly can. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's all make believe anyways.
Well, but I think this is the fundamental problem, right? Like, I think we get into this mindset that life sucks because then it's so easy to imagine when we didn't live in those times, right? Like, we didn't, even like, and even when we imagine like back, like, because I've heard people say, like, oh, we're so, different when I was a kid. And like lots of things were different, but you were also a kid. You weren't an adult. So you didn't have all the stresses and struggles of adulthood. So, like, maybe it wasn't that different. I don't know. And I think
Yeah.
this is like one of the struggles of human society is like it's so easy for us to imagine ideals and better places and like what things would be like. Like I can sit back and I could think of like, sometimes things seem so commonsensical to fix or to adjust, right? But like we don't do it. And it's just like, why? And I think that ability of ours to think that way and to dream of these things also can be a burden because it makes us look at our own world and devalue it as being like worse because it's not meeting up to these standards.
Mhm. Yeah. It's very easy to imagine that stuff, but but also like it's very easy to forget the bad things too. Like for as much as I get annoyed by technology and people on their phones and all that stuff, it's very easy to find something to do nowadays, to be distracted. Whereas like I forget what it was like, but if I try really hard, I can remember kind of what it was like to be bored when I was a kid, like
Oh yeah,
literally having
utterly
nothing to
bored.
do and
Yeah.
just like sitting there and staring at the carpet just because there's literally nothing to, it's raining outside. You've already done everything that you have inside, and it's just like,
You
okay,
know what's
nothing to
funny
do.
though? I was just thinking about this the other day, right? When I was really depressed, like everything felt like when I was severely bored when I was a kid. But it just
Mm.
went on like, but when you were bored when a kid, like something would come up. Or,
Hmm.
you could eventually find something because it wasn't that you were disinterested in everything. You just ran out of things basically to do. Right. And I always found that interesting that like there's that close association between boredom and depression where like it's like depression's like prolonged boredom almost,
Yeah,
in a weird
true,
way.
true. Well, so like one of the defining factors for depression is a sense of hopelessness, that like things won't get better. And people can endure anything as long as they know that it will eventually come to an end.
It
And
is
this is one thing
impressive
that
what
I
we can endure.
Yeah, and like this is one of the things I learned with the chronic pain books that I was listening to was like a lot of people they get really depressed when they have this chronic pain because it's just their their doctor tells them they're going to have it for life. And
Oh,
it's
and then
like
that like
pain sucks, but
that
like if you think you're going to
perpetuates
have
it.
that forever, it just
Yeah.
makes it that much worse and you lose all sense of hope. And so the depression, you can lose all sense of hope as well, and that can be one of the worst things. But this guy, Dr. David Burns, he calls depression and anxiety the world's oldest cons because really all that's happening is your mind is tricking you
Yeah.
and you're falling for it. Because even though it seems like it'll go on forever, it won't.
No.
And even though it seems like there's no hope, that's not true. But there's some cognitive distortions, which we made an episode on,
Yeah.
that may be going on that are the cause for it.
No, that was an interesting one too. And I think that's true. Like I remember it's funny, I remember like when I was really depressed and feeling hopeless. I remember when I think back on it now, like looking back on it when I'm not obviously depressed, like I remember it was like always these big things that would then generate the hopelessness. Like I'll never have it was, but it was always like, stuff that you could never change in a day. This is stuff that
Hmm.
takes a lifetime to change half of it. And like, yes, you can improve it. And then what I started doing was I was like, well, okay, yeah, I can't like eliminate my debt tomorrow. That's not going to happen because it's a
Hmm.
lot. But I could start dealing with it, right? In any way that
Yeah.
I can, which might mean just filing paperwork, maybe getting like a leniency for a while, whatever, right? Whatever it is. But then I started to change my mind to like, well, what if I just focus on like what I can do now? And even if it's like just get up and get a shower or something, because like there was a point where it's like really hard, right? And like I think that was really helpful because I stopped. It took a while, but I got myself to stop focusing on those large goals and focus more on small things that are achievable. And that really helped me get out of it. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the tricks of it though, is like it is like a mind trick, a con, where you
Hmm.
focus on these huge things that there's no way they're going to be fixed tomorrow. Obviously they're not. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to go from, no money to millionaire tomorrow. You're not going to like not that's just not going to happen.
Well, and so also like part of it, what he talks about in his books, Feeling Good and Feeling Great, is that you don't actually need to change the situation. It's oftentimes just the thought associated with the situation. So
Yeah.
like the thought that you need to be a millionaire in order to be a success, or if you're not a millionaire,
Yeah.
you're a complete failure. Like maybe that thought's not true. And so
Yeah.
he kind of like takes a look at those thoughts. And I find it really interesting where like his first book, Feeling Good, has been out since like the 1980s. So it's been out for a while. And there's been studies done on it, and people who have received the book after 4 weeks, they have a better success rate than antidepressants for treating depression, just reading his
Yeah.
book.
Because
And it's
antidepressants
like,
are junk though. They are. They're
yeah,
like junk
they're
science, dude.
garbage. Yeah, yeah,
90% of them cause depression anyway. Which is like
yeah.
because you're
And they're
depressed and
hard to
this
get
medicine's
off
not
of.
working. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
they're hard to get
terrible.
off of. It causes a whole bunch of other issues.
They're very bad. And like, but I think it's that also like, and I think this is going like we mentioned before we started this episode, like perspective. And I think that's such a huge issue with this. And it's one of those things where I think we lose perspective so easily and we think everything sucks or we get depressed. We think it's hopeless because we're just like our perspective on life is just wrong. We need to adjust it. And it's not easy to adjust. It takes time. And I think like doing little things can help. Like you said,
Hmm.
like reminding ourselves that like one, we're definitely not as worse off as everybody. There's so many people in the world that are way worse off. First of all, that's a good place to start, just to remind yourself. And to remind
Yeah.
yourself that like what you see online, like all these quote unquote success stories are like 0.0000001% of like what
Yeah.
happened, you
I
know?
think I think you kind of have to get the paradox of life where like you're not as bad as you think, but at the same time it's worse than you're considering. Because like there's no like error hierarchy of pain or of suffering. So like even though there are people and people in America I hear do this all the time where they're like, yeah, but there are people starving in Africa. And it's like, yeah, but if you're suffering at all in your life, it's just as terrible as that for them
Yeah, oh,
because they
absolutely.
have
Yeah.
suffering in their life, you have suffering in your life. It doesn't matter. You don't put it against somebody else's suffering. It's your own suffering, and it's just gonna suck.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point too, which is like, yeah, like when it happens to you, it sucks. And like the
Hmm.
perspective can help you like reframe your own suffering sometimes to help you get out of it. But like it's also it still hurts, right? And I
Hmm.
think like I always liked Nietzsche, and I mentioned this before, but he always talked about like reframing our perspective on suffering, viewing it as a positive because it's a chance to overcome ourselves and to do something different. Or it's like there are also a lot of times when we suffer as indications that something needs to change significant. I think that's also a
Hmm.
lot of times why we struggle so much with feeling like life sucks is like we really need a life change and we're just unwilling to make it or we haven't identified what it is yet. Like I know part of my problem, and I do know this, like I'm well aware of it. Like I really want to move out of this area and I'm working on doing that. And I know like part of my anger at this area has nothing to do with the people here or anything, right? It has to do more with geography and like where I want to be. And so like I'm aware
Hmm.
of that, I know that, and I know it's just gonna take time. But like when you realize these things and like it's almost like, we've talked about before, like looking in your past and finding out the things that like are still affecting you now and working through them because it makes it so much easier and you realize where all these things are coming from. It's sort of like
Hmm.
that, right? Slightly
Yeah.
different. Like you're realizing the cause of it rather than looking at the symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's kind of a thing about being a grown up about your life nowadays and
Yeah. I
handling
mean, and
stuff the
there's a
way
lot
you
of
handle.
sucky things. Don't get me wrong. I think there are a lot of things that suck in the world. People are sucky.
Yeah.
And, I think we're also just aware of so much more now, too. That makes it hard.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
When you remember when the
True.
news was on twice a day for 30 minutes each
Yeah.
time, like, and they
Yeah. And that
basically
was it.
cover it was basically factual information. This happened.
Yeah.
This storm
Not
happened. This many people
opinions,
died.
not talking
They didn't have
heads.
time, dude. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like each story was like 2 minutes. Like there wasn't
Yeah.
time to go into these 40-hour like, BS, spins on stuff.
Hmm.
You just said it. And I think that level of information was like doable. Like, oh yeah. Oh, we know that something's going on over in the Middle East or whatever, right? But now it's like you get 24-hour coverage on 70 stations, constantly
You know
looking at
what
it from
did
different
it? It was
angles.
it was the freaking OJ trial.
Yeah, that was a big one, I
That
know.
because the Kardashian was his lawyer, and then keeping up with the Kardashian. That's the beginning of the end, the
Yeah.
OJ trial.
I remember
Hmm.
them stopping our classes to watch that. Like I cared.
Yeah, right.
Like it was so
Yeah.
weird. That was the weirdest thing to me that like our teachers stopped. They're like, we got to see this thing. I'm like, I don't care what this thing. I don't even know who the hell
They're
OJ
like, I
Simpson
want to know
is.
what's going on. We should tell
Yeah.
the students it's important for them, so we get to watch it. Yeah. I
I remember
know
they wheeled
it is a strange quirk of humanity where we love to put our nose in other people's business.
constantly. Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's also
Mm.
just we're always constantly trying to assess ourselves and our place, right?
Mm.
We're always trying
Hmm.
to figure out like, where am I relative to everybody else? Man, am I winning or
Hmm.
losing? It's like kind of
Yeah.
silly. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we all lose.
Well, in the end, yeah.
Yeah.
We
Or
all
we all
lose,
win,
we all
depending on how you
die.
look at it, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody's a winner. Everybody gets a trophy. It's like
Yeah.
Little League all over again. All right.
All right. Well, there you have it, I guess, right?
Hmm.
Life sucks, probably, and maybe it's perspective. I don't know. We had a lot of things. Listen, you tell us. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. If you like this episode, check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Like, share, subscribe. It helps us out a lot. We'll be back later this week on that episode. Until then, no. Later, Randy.
Later, Danny.